American babies are exhausted, so are their parents, not because something is wrong with American babies, not because American parents are failing, but because somewhere along the way, American parenting absorbed a set of assumptions about infant sleep that are not based in biology. They are based in urgency, in anxiety. In a culture that needed babies to sleep on a schedule because the parents had to be back at work in 10 weeks, Scandinavian babies don't have that problem. Cross-cultural sleep research comparing infants in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Finland to infants in the United States shows a consistent pattern. Nordic babies fall asleep faster, they wake less. They consolidate their sleep into longer continuous blocks earlier in development. The difference is not in their DNA. Nordic and American babies share the same nervous system, the same biology, the same developmental hardware. What differs is the environment, the assumptions. The specific habits their parents inherited as obvious. This video is about 5 of those habits. Each one is backed by sleep science. Each one will look at first like something you could never do. By the end, you will understand exactly why it works, and you will know what you can change tonight. Drop your baby's age in the comments. I read every one. The first habit starts now. 1. They go outside every single day, in every single weather. In Sweden, in Norway, in Denmark, and Finland, the practice has a name: friluftsliv, open-air living. And it begins in the first weeks of life. Babies are dressed in wool layers, placed in prams, and left to nap outside, on patios, outside cafes, in gardens, regardless of whether it is sunny, rainy, or actively snowing. The pram goes out. The baby goes with it. Research from Finland found that babies who nap outdoors sleep up to an hour and a half longer than babies who nap indoors. That is not a small difference. That is a different category of rest. Here is what is happening biologically. A baby's circadian rhythm, the internal clock that governs sleep and wake, is not pre-calibrated at birth. It has to be built, and the single most powerful signal for building that clock is natural light, specifically the contrast between outdoor light during the day and darkness at night. Outdoor light is exponentially brighter than indoor light, even on a cloudy day. That brightness suppresses daytime melatonin, keeps the nervous system alert and engaged during waking hours, and then at night, when the contrast comes, melatonin production surges. The clock locks in, sleep deepens. The indoor nursery, kept at a comfortable artificial brightness, blurs that contrast. The baby's nervous system cannot distinguish day from night with enough precision. The circadian rhythm develops slowly, night sleep fragments. What this means is the outdoor nap is not an eccentricity. It is a biological calibration tool. There is something else. Babies sleeping outdoors are exposed to the ambient sounds of the natural world: wind, birds, distant movement. These sounds are spectrally complex in a way that masks sudden sharp noises. The indoor house, by contrast, is mostly silent, which means any sound becomes a disruption. The outdoor environment, paradoxically, is a more consistent sound environment. The baby learns to sleep through variation. You do not need a patio in Oslo. You need 15 minutes in morning light, a walk in the stroller before the first nap. That contrast, registered by the visual system and relayed to the suprachiasmatic nucleus, the brain's master clock, is enough to begin the process. This is real. The light is the signal. You can give your baby that signal today. 2. They keep the room cold. The standard Scandinavian nursery temperature is 16 to 18 degrees Celsius, 60 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit, year-round. To an American parent, that sounds like neglect. To a Scandinavian parent, that sounds like Tuesday. The biology is not complicated. The human body initiates sleep through a core temperature drop. When the ambient environment is cool, the body cools faster, melatonin rises, the parasympathetic nervous system activates, and the brain receives a clear signal: rest is safe. When the room is warm, that signal is suppressed. Warmth tells the nervous system to remain alert. It is an evolutionary response. Warmth signals daytime activity, the presence of the sun. Cool signals night, safety, recovery. This effect is more pronounced in infants than in adults. Babies have a higher baseline core temperature, less efficient thermoregulation, and a more dramatic sleep response to ambient cooling. The fix is not simply dropping the temperature and removing blankets. The Scandinavian method is specific. The room is cool. The baby is dressed in wool, a wool sleep sack, sometimes a wool base layer beneath it. The body stays warm under the layers. The face stays cool. The ambient air stays cool. That combination, warm body, cool environment, is the signal the nervous system is optimized for. The American nursery thermostat set at 72 degrees for comfort is working physiologically against the sleep signal, not dramatically, not catastrophically, but consistently every single night. What this means is the room temperature is not a comfort setting, it is a biological instruction, and you are allowed to lower it. 3. They do not sleep train and their babies still sleep. This one is the most disorienting for American parents to hear. In the United States, sleep training is an industry. Cryetaut, Ferber, Chair Method, Babywise. There are books, apps, consultants, entire online communities devoted to the methodology of getting a baby to sleep independently. Usually by allowing varying degrees of crying until the infant stops expecting a response and stops sending the signal. It is framed as teaching the baby to self-soothe. It is presented as a developmental milestone. In Sweden, the concept barely exists. A 2021 study of Norwegian mothers found that not one of the mothers surveyed endorsed letting their infant cry themselves to sleep. Not a cultural plurality, not one. The researchers noted that Norwegian mothers emphasize the infant's need for security and physical closeness, and view responsiveness, not controlled crying, as the foundation of independence later in development. This is not sentimentality, it is attachment science. Research into infant cortisol levels during controlled crying methods shows that even after a baby stops crying and appears to be sleeping, their cortisol, the primary stress hormone, remains elevated. The crying stops, the stress does not. The baby has not learned to self-soothe. The baby has learned that the signal produces no response and has habituated. Those are not the same thing. Scandinavian parents respond. They respond at night. They co-sleep at high rates. A 2020 survey of 3,590 Swedish infants found that 43% were sleeping in their parents' bed at 3 months, and they view this not as a failure to establish independence, but as the biological precondition for it. The nervous system that felt safe in the first year becomes the nervous system that can self-regulate in the second. The child who was responded to consistently does not need to be trained out of needing comfort. They already know comfort exists, they have already internalized it. What this means is responsiveness is not the opposite of independence, it is the prerequisite for it. 4. They are not in a hurry. American parents face a specific structural pressure that Scandinavian parents simply do not face. In the United States, the average paid parental leave is 10 weeks. In Sweden, parents receive 480 days of paid leave per child, split between both parents. In Norway, parents have similar access. In Denmark, the leave extends across months. What this creates is not just more time with the baby, it creates a different relationship to the baby's developmental timeline. When a parent must return to work at 10 weeks, the baby sleeping through the night by 12 weeks is not just desirable, it is a logistical necessity. The urgency is real. And that urgency shapes every decision about feeding schedules, sleep training, and sleep environment. The goal becomes sleep independently, sleep on schedule, sleep through the night as fast as possible. Scandinavian parents are not operating under that urgency. The baby's sleep develops at the baby's developmental pace. The parent is there to meet each phase as it comes, not to accelerate through it. This is not a policy argument. It is an observation about what urgency does to biology. When a parent is stressed about the baby's sleep, the parent's cortisol rises. When cortisol rises, the body language changes, the voice changes, the quality of the physical contact changes. Babies are exquisitely sensitive to parental nervous system states. They co-regulate. A stressed parent holding an infant at 2 a.m. is not a calm environment. The Scandinavian parent at 2 a.m. is not afraid of 2 a.m. They have time. The baby senses this. This is real, and it is not measured in any sleep study, but it is happening. You cannot manufacture 480 days of parental leave, but you can notice the urgency. You can ask whether the pressure you feel about your baby's sleep schedule is biological, about your baby, or structural, about your deadline. That distinction matters. 5. They trust the cold. This one is the hardest for American parents to absorb because it requires releasing something deeper than a habit. It requires releasing a fear. The Scandinavian practice of outdoor napping in winter in temperatures well below freezing, sometimes below -10 degrees Celsius, was not an accident. It was not recklessness. It began as a deliberate public health policy. In the early 20th century, Nordic maternity clinics began recommending outdoor exposure for infants explicitly to build immune function. The cold was not incidental, the cold was the point. A study from the University of Gothenburg found that children with more frequent early outdoor exposure were significantly less likely to develop allergies and autoimmune conditions later in life. Cold air triggers vasoconstriction in the nasal passages, the blood vessels narrow, mucus clears, and respiratory immunity responds. The body adapts, the immune system learns. American parents are taught culturally and medically to keep infants warm indoors and away from cold air exposure. The intention is protective, the outcome is sometimes the opposite. The Scandinavian baby wearing a wool sleep sack in a pram at -5 degrees is not suffering. The research and generations of clinical observation suggest that baby is building something. What this means is the instinct to protect by keeping warm and indoors is understandable. It is human, but protection is not the same as insulation. The nervous system that never encounters cold never learns to regulate it. The immune system that never encounters the outdoor environment never learns to navigate it. You are not being asked to leave your baby in the snow. You are being asked to consider that the outside world, even the cold, even in winter, is not a threat your baby needs to be shielded from. It is an environment your baby was built for. 5 habits, not 5 hacks. These are not productivity tips for sleep. They are a coherent philosophy: the cold room, the outdoor nap. The responsive night, the absence of urgency, the trust in the environment. They work because they are aligned with what the infant nervous system is biologically asking for. Not warmth and quiet and schedule and control, something older than that. Light contrast and cool air and consistent response and the sound of wind. Your baby's nervous system is not asking for what American parenting culture assumes it is asking for. It is asking for the conditions it evolved to function in. Those conditions still exist. You can provide them. Drop your baby's age in the comments. Tell me what you are going to try first.